Hello, this is a short video that has been designed as a starting point for departments and programs to think about developing thoughtful, well-aligned program learning outcomes. We will share what program learning outcomes are, why program learning outcomes are valuable, how to write effective program learning outcomes, and finally, show how to apply program learning outcomes to create a cohesive curriculum that supports student learning. Firstly, let's look at what program learning outcomes are. Program learning outcomes are a set of statements that specify the fundamental disciplinary knowledge, skills, abilities, and attitudes that students will develop over the course of their studies, which lead to their degree. Before moving on to writing program learning outcomes, let us briefly touch on their importance. First of all, the process of writing program learning outcomes encourages faculty to reflect on and develop clear expectations for student learning in their discipline. Well-written, intentional program learning outcomes also support course cohesion at the programmatic level. And finally, well-defined program learning outcomes are essential to developing courses within a curriculum that provide students with opportunities to acquire and apply disciplinary knowledge and skills, and ultimately to demonstrate mastery and achievement of the outcomes. Now let's move on to writing program learning outcomes. Program learning outcomes are broader and more comprehensive than learning outcomes associated with individual courses. They should be specific to the program and appropriate to the degree. They can be based on existing program mission statements or goals and objectives. However, they should be written from the perspective of what the student will learn. As you think about developing or refining your program learning outcomes, please take a moment to step back and reflect upon the skill sets that you aspire for students to have when they graduate and transition to their chosen career path. At this point, feel free to pause the video and consider the following questions. These guiding questions are a starting point to write program learning outcomes that are holistic, reflective of your program, and appropriate for your field. Now that you have had a sense of what information to gather in your own context, let us try to revise a sample program learning outcome. Imagine you are tasked with revising the following. Students will be able to understand the credibility and value of information acquired from many different sources, search the literature, and retrieve and analyze information. To improve this program learning outcome, we can make it easier to measure. Words such as understand, know, or appreciate make poor choices for learning outcomes. They are not concrete and very difficult to observe and to measure. Here is a modified version of the program learning outcome that adds greater detail and clarifies the expectations for students. Students will be able to evaluate the credibility and value of information acquired from many different sources, use digital technologies to search the literature, and to retrieve and analyze information from reliable databases. Program learning outcomes can help direct and guide development of curricula information informing the course learning outcomes and assessment for the courses across the department, and thus creating a more cohesive learning experience for students. Here are a couple of additional examples of program learning outcomes that are concrete and discipline specific. Notice the specificity and verbs such as recognize and develop that indicate how the learning outcomes might be measured. Students graduating with a degree should be able to recognize ethical and professional responsibilities in engineering situations and make informed judgments, which must consider the impact of engineering solutions in global, economic, environmental, and societal contexts. Students graduating with a degree should be able to develop and sustain cogent oral arguments regarding political phenomena, theories, and values based on appropriate evidence and logic. Once you have drafted a set of program learning outcomes, the Engage Teaching Hub at the Teaching and Learning Commons can support you by reviewing these outcomes and helping you identify where in the curriculum the program learning outcomes are supported. This is done through a process called curriculum mapping, which helps you identify gaps, redundancies, and alignment to ensure coherence across a curriculum. For support in developing program learning outcomes or curriculum mapping, please contact us at the email below. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope that this video is a starting point for you to write intentional, well-aligned program learning outcomes.